let's go with the next slide. How do I go to the next slide? Down here. Sorry, I haven't done a presentation in a little while. Yeah, so I wanted to start by saying the simple phrase, everyone's heard it and said it before, that you are what you eat. I mean, it is, in a very literal sense, your physical body is the things that you take in. But in a more, dare I say, metaphysical sense, you are what you eat, in the sense that you're also all of the impacts that your food choices make. You are what you eat, and you are what you eat eats. So in this picture, we have some cattle at Kate's family farm. We source some beef from Kate's family farm, and they are 100% pasture raised livestock, and yeah, we feel pretty good about getting our beef there. You are what you eat. You are the soil where your food was grown, and the water that ran off from that soil or infiltrated into it. You are the inputs and the fertilizers and the herbicides and the pesticides. You know, every food choice you make, it does ripple out into the world. There's, you know, we don't always want to think about it. Sometimes you just want to stuff that burger in your face and not think about where it came from. But you know, but life is, it's real. Whatever you eat it's you know, there are real implications. You are what you eat. You are the CO2 emissions of the whole process. And depending what choices you make for food, you could have very high CO2 emissions or pretty low. You know, you are also the labor that goes into your meal. There's certainly meals that are where, yeah, maybe you're getting food for really cheap, but how many people were exploited that on the path that food took from the farm to your plate to get you that really cheap meal. Or on the other hand, who made exorbitant amounts of money on it at the very top. So there's a, you know, it's kind of reiterating what I just said. Your food choices have impacts. They ripple out onto the landscape and they affect people. And they really do define part of who you are in this world and how you're interacting with this world. You know, and environmentally, socially, yeah, your food choices have an impact. And, right there is a burger from our restaurant. That's also, that's Kate's family farm beef on that burger. So the same cattle you saw in the first picture. Here they are in our restaurant. I'm just kind of randomly admitting people when it pops up on my screen. I assume maybe Wade sees that too. Okay. So this is something that I think about a lot. But if a restaurant does not know where its food comes from, then the restaurant doesn't even know what it is serving. You know, we post things online on social media all the time, and I can be proud of what we're posting because I know exactly where it came from. I know what the food is. I know who grew it. I know a bit about their farming practices, and I know that they're people who I have confidence in, and they're trying to do the right thing by the land and the right thing for their animals. And, so, you know, I can serve a plate of food or a bowl of food and feel pretty good about what I'm serving to a customer. But yeah, at a lot of places, maybe they're serving up a bowl full of animal cruelty, or, you know, if they're serving Brazilian beef, they might not even know they're serving Brazilian beef, but it, you know, some Amazon rainforest might have been cleared out for that Brazilian beef to have a place to be raised, or for the soy to be grown to feed them. So yeah, maybe you're serving up a plate of slash and burn steak, or a tall glass of excessive CEO compensation. I think Oh, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the vast majority of the beer produced in the world is produced by just a couple of conglomerate mega companies that have merged. I can't even keep track of the names of them anymore because they keep changing it when they merge more and more businesses. Um, so yeah, or a drug cartel financing sandwich. That's the avocado on there. Apparently, drug cartels have been taking over part of the avocado industry in Mexico, sometimes by force. Um, and yeah, so maybe you're financing a drug cartel with your turkey avocado sandwich. Or maybe you have a dessert of worker exploitation, a delicious worker exploitation with, you know, read a few things about, yeah, and some of the berry picking businesses out there. They don't always treat workers well. So that all sounds delicious, doesn't it? So anyhow, the point is next time you eat out, really pay attention. Where do you think it's all coming from? Is it, because of that food is what you will become, and what it's a choice you're making for this world. Um, I don't want to be too preachy about it, but pay attention. I mean, it does matter. Um, yeah, and while it's hard to know, I mean, food's really complicated, right? There's so many ingredients in every meal. It's impossible to keep track of every last, CO2 emission or worker along the value chain and how they've been treated. Like, you can't know everything. But some things we believe in and that we use as guiding principles are just sourcing directly from farms we know, people we know, people we trust, choosing farms that prioritize conservation. Like Wade said in the beginning, Marie works for Dane County Land Conservation. She knows, I trust her judgment more than just about anyone on, which farms are sustainable and which are not. So she's kind of a great filter as far as picking out which farms we really ought to work with and which ones we maybe should not work with. And then when we can't source something locally from a farm, we try to either get it from businesses that share our values, or something that's further away. Like, we're not going to get local chocolate chips, but we can get equal exchange chocolate chips and organic chocolate chips, things like that. So yeah, we try to make choices that we can believe in, even if we don't know every last detail about everything. At least we can try to make choices we can believe in. And then my pet peeve is restaurants and food businesses who like to talk the talk, but then they don't put their money where their mouth is, or they don't walk the walk. There are you can go to a lot of restaurants and they'll maybe have their menu board or they'll have a little board that says, here's farms that we support. And then we've had farmers say, gosh, I'm on so many of those boards and those people haven't bought for me in 2 years. Or maybe a restaurant will have like 1 or 2 token items that'll be like, oh, we're farm to table. We get our hamburger from this place, this one farm, but nothing else on the menu is local. Or maybe it's just seasonally, they'll have a little bit of local produce. But 90% of what they get is off the Cisco truck, and they have no idea where it came from, or they just go buy it at, places who, do a weekly trip to Costco, and that's their food sourcing. And maybe that's easier than ours in some ways, but I wouldn't feel as good about it myself. So here's our sourcing this is from 2020. We looked at all of our sourcing in 2020 for food and drink purchases. So raw ingredients for the most part here. And I think it would be about the same for 2021. We haven't done the analysis on it. But yeah, it was 52%. So just over half was direct from farm purchases. And then 15% were Wisconsin food products purchased from a secondary supplier. So things like we don't get our cheese directly from a farm most of the time, with a couple exceptions. The cheese might come from a distributor, but it's still Wisconsin grown, or sourced, and sourced through a Wisconsin company. 10% were food products from Wisconsin businesses. Maybe they weren't necessarily locally grown. We can't say 100% for sure on a couple. So an example there, trying to think of a good example there, would be like, we get stuff from Driftless Chocolates, and we sell some of their stuff, and they, obviously isn't locally grown, but it's a business just in Paoli. And then only 13 or 9% was regional, so things from Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, so Midwest. Get a handful of things from regional sources, especially in the off season or winter season. We can we get apple juice for our non-alcoholic cider from Michigan in the winter, or when we can't get it from Wisconsin. So anyhow, here's a map that we did of our local sourcing. I'm going to go just pop out and show you on. Where is it here? Where you can actually look at it. So we have this map. This is also from 2020. So farms we sourced from in 2020. And it has a little bit of information about them. We got some chicken from them that year, got some berries from those folks. We get a lot from, there's some farms we source from all the time. There's Squashington Farm, for example, are right outside of town. We get veggies from them all the time. We get Seven Seeds Farm all the time. We get Dumplings cheese a bit. And then there's other ones, year to year, this map would change a little bit. There's some that we don't source from all the time. So it's, but still, it shows, if you're spending money at Brix Cider, that money is going to flow out to these places, as opposed to just getting siphoned up to the Cisco CEO. All right, so back to that presentation. I'm going to do that again. Play from current slide. There we go. So here's an example of a meal at Brix. This was a special we ran a couple months ago. So we made dumplings, and the flour for the dumplings was from Meadowlark Organics. They're over in Ridgeway. They've got a farm and a mill, and they do lots of different grains and some beans, and we source a lot from them. We made the dough for the dumplings using their flour. Inside the dumplings, there's both pork and beef, and the pork came from Seven Seeds Farm in Spring Green, and the beef came from Kate's Family Farm in Spring Green. And then on the side, we got some daikon radish slaw. The radish came from Squashington Farm in Mt Horeb, and the microgreens came from Sun Garden Greenhouse in Lancaster. So really, it's just a whole plate of totally locally sourced stuff. And that's, and most of our plates of food are like that, where you can trace everything back and we can tell you where it all came from. And then our cider, our hard cider, 100% of the apples for our hard cider come from local orchards. We pick some of the apples ourselves. It's a little under half that we've picked ourselves at this point. And then the rest we buy from orchards that have pre-picked them. In that picture on the left, that's we're picking apples. We just drive our truck out with our trailer, and that's actually an abandoned orchard. No one would have used those apples. It's a farm over in, that one's actually near Spring Green as well. And so we have a number of orchards that we source from that are kind of like that, where it's, maybe it was a very active orchard at one point, but now the trees are still making apples or producing apples, but nobody wants to, no one has a market for them or has the labor to go out and pick them. So we utilize this otherwise underutilized crop at some orchards. We provide a market for the orchards where we buy apples that they picked. We're generally buying their seconds. And usually they're perfectly good apples. They're just cosmetically not perfect. They might have just little blemishes, things that make them not suitable for selling on the shelf or selling in the grocery store. So we get them for cider, and they're perfectly fine for cider. I mean, we never use rotten apples for cider. We try to avoid buggy apples. So yeah, we definitely still want quality apples, but we don't care if they don't look perfectly pretty. So that way we're able to use a lot of stuff that would otherwise go to waste or wouldn't have as good of a market. I know we pay a lot more for apple seconds than growers can get elsewhere. So yeah, as Wade mentioned in the beginning, we started doing, it's called the Brix Project. We got a grant, a local food promotion program grant. And it's in partnership with a little media company called Krim Creative, and then a researcher from the University of Wisconsin, Madison. And what we're doing with the project is we're doing a couple of things, but one thing is Krim Creative is making these little films about some of the producers we work with and our relationships with them. And then we're also doing some events. Lately, we've been doing a thing called Crash the Kitchen, where we're having guest chefs come in. And they basically come into our kitchen and use whatever ingredients we have and produce a meal for whoever bought tickets. And it's a totally improvised meal, just with whatever we have on hand at the time. And so far, it's been really fun, and they've created some really good stuff. Anyhow, I wanted to show you one of these videos just to give you a feel for it. Let me pop out to here. This is on our website. We have over on the side there, we have this Brix Project. There's a few different videos. There's one about our apples sourcing. That one's a little long, so I'm not going to show you that one right now, but you can watch it on your own sometime. This one about Washington Farm. I'll show you this one about Kate's Farm because it's actually the shortest one. It's a short one, but a good one. So hopefully you'll be able to hear it all right.
Local sourcing in general does take some effort. It's a little bit more difficult when you source local to be consistent throughout the year because our growing season isn't consistent. But the one thing that can stay really consistent on any restaurant's menu is really their meat selection. I've always thought that hamburger is really the low-hanging fruit for restaurants. You know how much of it you need every week. We have ample supply in the area, and farmers need a better outlet for that supply.
Our partnership with Brix really kicked off this summer.
You know, the Cateses were right there to step up and provide the beef that we needed at the scale we needed it, which was kind of a jump for us.
You know, I reached out to Marie, and we started selling some of our ground beef and our summer sausage. And then as they kind of shifted their stay here with me. They felt more comfortable to have some outdoor dining. We started using our ground beef and the burger that they're serving.
And we also do a burger of the week now, which Derek has been coming up with, and that's super fun and really popular.
Burger of the week's kind of new. I'd say like last month. I kind of started doing that just trying to keep things interesting during COVID time.
You know, we have our new cook, Derek, who went to culinary school. And this is the first time he's been on a farm for a farm that supplies the meat that he uses. And that's a problem, right?
Yeah, it's a really cool experience just to see them prior to just showing up at the restaurant.
If you go to culinary school, you should understand at least the basics about how food is produced. We should all probably go to a slaughter plant at some point too, but you know.
We run a grass-fed, grass-finished operation here. They're on pasture all year round. As you can see, it's winter now, and we got snow, and they're still on pasture, and they get moved pretty much every day, every other day, and then through the winter, same deal. Like they just stay out on the pasture. They get moved every day, and I bring hay bales to them, and that way they're just kind of constantly on the move. We're not overusing one area too much. We're spreading out their nutrients through the manure and through the hay that's left over at the end of the day. And we found that works well for us because it's less intensive on the land. We're not beating up any one area too much. We never have to put a plow on the ground and reseed anything. One of our taglines that we've kind of grabbed onto is a commitment to conservation. And to us, what that means is, our first priority is taking care of the land and the water. And through that process, we can create an atmosphere for the cattle that is, about as good as you can get or good as you can ask for. We take care of the cattle by taking care of the land and the water first.
If I haven't been on the farm, I'm not going to buy that product. So especially for meat, I can guarantee I've been on every farm that I buy meat from. I know the farmers, they're my friends. It's nice. It's also like awesome to write your friends checks. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're gonna write out a bunch of checks every week, why do it to someone you don't know and send the money who knows where? When if I write Eric and Kylie a check, chances are next week they're gonna pop into Brix for a meal. It's bizarre to me that people don't see the interconnectedness between local money, a local food economy, and just local rural health. Those dollars that we send out each week come back fivefold, I'm convinced.
All right, hopefully that all worked okay for everybody. So yeah, in summary, where was I played from? Yeah, so kind of summing up what I've said so far, really your food choices do matter, and it's possible to choose good food and good drink that you can feel good about. So that's kind of what I had for a presentation, and then we can open it up if people have questions, comments, or discussion thoughts. Yeah.
That was great, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Robert had a question, and if you have some questions, feel free to throw them in the comment box or the chat box. Robert had a question to kind of kick things off. What are local, state, and federal policies that help your efforts, and what are some policies that hinder your efforts? Can you think of anything?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not an expert on, I'm a policy wonk, but from what I know of the Farm Bill, it is just kind of, it's written by the powers that be for the powers that be, and it's not, and the little guys trying to do interesting local food stuff we can carve out a tiny niche of it. We can, call up our congressional representatives and argue for local food and organic food to get a few $1 million. But yeah, the big dollars are still going towards commodity subsidies and stuff. So yeah, that's not helpful to have the main piece of agricultural policy be something that is yeah, kind of skewed towards the opposite of what we're doing. Locally, you know, we did get, we've gotten a couple grants over the years. One that I really liked was the Buy Local, Buy Wisconsin grant through GATCAT, which is out there right now if anyone wants to try to apply for it. But yeah, we got, I think, $24,000 when we were first starting out, and it was like super huge at the time because we were a startup, and that made a big difference and helped us get financing, like gave us a little startup. So then a bank took us a little more seriously when we applied for a loan. So yeah, that's like a nice, yeah, those little grant programs can be really helpful. You know, they can be, you know, some of them, what I liked about that one, it didn't come with a whole lot of strings attached. This one we're doing now that I'm, you know, with the videos and stuff, is the local food promotion program grant, and that's actually a federal grant. And I mean, it's great, but it's also like that one has so many strings attached. Like it's a pain in the butt. Like I spend a ton of time trying to administer it, and you know, and it's not flexible money either. You know, it's going towards kind of specific things that, you know, they help us. Like it's great having you know, the videos and featuring the different farms and doing having some support for events and stuff. But yeah, it comes with a lot of strings attached. So yeah, as far as other policies, I mean, yeah, I guess like I said, I'm not a policy wonk, but those are the things that immediately came to mind as helpful or not helpful.
We're a pretty small group here, so if you have a question, feel free to unmute and say it out loud. But I have one question. You mentioned, you know, a lot of restaurants back up the Cisco truck once a week to the restaurant, and you know that's where they get 90% of their food from, or whatever it may be. And then Marie said in her video that she's writing checks to her friends, and she's, you know, all these farmers that, you know, are on your payroll essentially. And so I mean, that seems to be one of the issues with maybe bridging the gap between local food and having the Cisco truck, as there's probably a lot between, you know, there's a lot of hassle and there's a lot of different things you have to, maybe time, and maybe just, can you talk about like, what are some of the challenges of buying local, and what are some things that maybe other restaurants could do, could maybe take steps towards becoming a little bit more local?
Yeah, I think yeah, Marie and I have a bit of an advantage with you know, Marie knowing a lot of farmers through her day job, and we both kind of studied agriculture in school in different ways. So we kind of, I think we came in, compared to most restaurant owners, we kind of came in understanding agriculture a lot more deeply than a typical restaurant owner. And you know, we've even like hired cooks and things who say they're really into local food, and then like when you get to know that, you know, they'll like, gosh, I want to do a special with rice. Can you source some local rice? And no, I mean, wild rice maybe. I'm like, no, I don't want wild rice. So anyhow, there's certainly like just sort of a barrier in terms of what people know about agriculture, and like there's such a disconnect from agriculture. Just, you know, the kind of you know, this the average person in the restaurant industry doesn't know that much about agriculture. Like the guy in the video there, Derek, he's worked, he went to culinary school, he's worked at restaurants for, you know, 8-10 years, something like that, and he had never been on a farm where this food came from. And that's totally the norm, is there's just really a total disconnect. And you know, and I think it's and cooks who come to our place are always kind of surprised how different it is. They're like, oh, you just you don't just have an order sheet from Cisco, or you just check all the boxes that you need. That, you know, we kind of made our own little spreadsheet that has a bunch of different farms on it, and a couple of distributors, and then but it changes through the year. Like even the spreadsheet becomes obsolete every few months. They got to change some things. There's things that stay the same, but produce definitely changes all year. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think a lot of restaurants are just intimidated. They don't understand food systems. They don't understand farmers. They don't know farmers. I think there's places that might be interested in doing more, but they're kind of comfortable in what they're doing already, and it's. But I wouldn't say that it's that much harder once you kind of have some relationships. I did orders today, and yeah, I mean, I have to send out a few more emails and messages and things, but it's not this horrible burden. And it's kind of nice because there are those relationships then, and it's you get to know different farmers and what they're doing and what their struggles are and what their opportunities are, and and we do a lot of things. Like something I think is unique is like Seven Seeds Farm, we source a lot of meat from them, and instead, it's not like we have a bacon and cheddar burger all the time, because there's only so much bacon from a pig, right? Like, so he'll say, "Gosh, Matt, I got like a pile of pork shoulder right now. Can you like get through some pork shoulder?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, like we'll come up with a special with pork shoulder," and that's why we've been running that those pork tacos. We've been going through his pork shoulder, and now he's like, "Oh Matt, we're burning through the pork shoulder. Can you switch it up?" So we're gonna have to switch it up, but it's kind of fun. Like we feel like we're partnering in a way. Like it's not just they don't have to completely reinvent their system to work around us. Like we just kind of work together and talk through things. So I'm sorry I went off on a tangent, but I do think other restaurants, that learning a little bit is the biggest hurdle, and then and it's learning among owners and learning among staff, and it's a bit of a hurdle, I think, for a lot of places.
That's great. Did anyone else have a question that they'd like to chime in with? If not, we do have some links in the chat. So I posted the link to the sourcing map that Matt presented earlier, and then the link to all the remaining Brix Project videos if you want to check them out on your own time. They're all really well done. I think I went through all of them, but they're just really neat stories about local farms, and I don't know that any of the farms that were featured in those videos are more than a half hour away from Mt Horeb. Pretty
Yeah,
close.
they're all close. Yeah.
So they're in our community, so it's great to support those places and kind of learn about them too. So come to Brix sometime. I'm usually there Thursday nights at working, so in case you're hungry or thirsty, come on in. It's a really cool place, and it's just down the street from our office too, so cool place to hang out. In case, and unless there aren't any other questions, good question, Alice. Where is Brix? Matt, do you want to describe where the restaurant is?
It is 119 South 2nd Street in Mt Horeb. So it's Mt Horeb downtown. There's the one stoplight on Main Street, and if you turn south from that stoplight, it's about a block and a half down to Brix. And it's so right basically downtown Mt Horeb, right next to the bike path. If you like bicycling in the summertime, we're right on the bike path.
And it's a great outdoor area too. So they have a really nice little patio set up. So if you're interested in eating outside in the summertime, it's a really nice spot for that too.
We even for a little while yet, so you probably saw in the video, there's like this couple of weird little spots where there was like wood paneling around. That was one of our ice shanties we have for outdoor seating. We started that during last winter for COVID kind of has people who have their own private seating. So we have a couple ice shanties you can call in. And if you want to just have like, you're still wanting to be cautious about COVID, and which, perfectly understandable if you are, we have those for, so you can just rent them for yourself, and we only charge $5. So it's not like, I mean, it's an ice shanty. We can't charge that much. So anyhow, that's what that was, to explain that weird little bit in the video. Yeah, but then in the summer we have picnic tables and stuff outside.
Stacy just chimed in saying that she loves Brix. Thank you for the talk, and she hopes the lemongrass Thai cider comes back at some point.
Oh, maybe the lemon basil cider?
Lemon basil, I think, is probably what you're going for, Stacy. Is that right?
Yeah, we're as soon as we can get some basil, we get it from Sun Garden Greenhouse, and as soon as they have a crop ready for us, we will make some more. So we'll have it going this summer again.
How many pounds of basil do you use for a batch of your lemon basil cider?
What is it? Yeah, I think it was 15 pounds.
That's a lot of basil.
Yeah. So it's about a 250 gallon batch. I think it was 15 pounds, which really is, it's, 250 gallons is kind of a lot. I was impressed how much the basil really came through with 15 pounds of it. And we just steep it right in the cider for like a week. We just go around after it's already fermented, we steep the basil right in there.
Very cool. All right. Any other questions people would have? Feel free to chime in. If not, I have a couple housekeeping things. So I'll stop the recording here.